everybody to today's HR and Leadership Coffee Talk. So I'm Daya Naif, and I'm here with Edgar Jatu, who is an HR professional. And we're going to have answer some frequently asked questions about what's going on now with COVID-19 in the HR and leadership worlds. All right, so as I mentioned, I am Daya Naif. I'm a professional coach, a certified mediator, and I have 16 years in law, and I was a contract general counsel. Edgar, would you introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, I'm Edgar Jatu, and I'm a HR consultant. I'm also a nonprofit professional, and I pride myself in being a problem solver and a workers' rights advocate.
So, Edgar, we're just going to jump right in and get to what people have asked for. And so what's the difference between a layoff or a furlough, and what are the financial implications?
A layoff and a furlough are two different things, but kind of accomplish similar objectives. The main objective is to help you manage your personnel costs, particularly during a tough time like COVID-19. A layoff is essentially a complete separation of the employment relationship. So you tell your employees, look, for whatever reason, I cannot keep you on staff anymore, and we're terminating the employment relationship. So all that you owe that employee is any final paycheck, including any accrued vacation or any other benefits that have to be paid out to that person. And that is a layoff. A furlough is essentially a work stoppage. So with a furlough, your employees are still employed by you technically, but you're basically telling them that whether it's for financial reasons or with other reasons, that you cannot have them work for a certain period of time. And there is no requirements in terms of how long their furlough can last for. Furloughs can last for as long as you deem it necessary. The difference, though, is that with a furlough, the minute that someone starts working for you, you have to pay them for their time. So if you want to make sure that people are not working for you while they're in furlough, then you have to make clear that they need authority before they can start doing anything for the company from home, or to come into the office or work site. And you can even go as far as deactivating or suspending some of their accounts or email access to ensure that they're not working without your express authorization. And with a furlough and a layoff, in either situation, an employee can apply for unemployment. So that's something you want to make sure that, particularly in the case of a furlough, that employees understand that that's an option for them. And also, with other decision you make there, it's really important that you put it in writing. I think if there's one thing that this current state of affairs has taught us, is documentation is really important, because it really matters in helping people understand where they are with their employment, right? Because that matters for unemployment. That can matter for you if you're trying to apply for certain types of loans or get some loans forgiven. So it's really important that that you document the reasons why you're laying off someone or you're furloughing someone for your own records, and also that you put that in writing to the employee and give them notice that this is the decision you're making. And the last thing I would say about a layoff or furlough that I get a lot of questions about is, how does one make those decisions? There is not really one answer. I mean, usually both of these decisions are based off of some financial hardship that, particularly in these times, that you're making or that you're experiencing. But the one thing that is certainly a constant is that you want to make sure it's done fairly and non-discriminatorily. That's probably the main thing you want to make sure you keep in mind. So even more reason why you want to make sure that if there, that you have a business justification and that is in writing somewhere to protect yourself from any sort of allegations.
Yeah, that would be great, and make sure that the employee understands what's going on, especially that if they can't log in, if they're furloughed or laid off. like
Right.
don't work at all. So, all right. So next, how can I keep employees employed while also saving money?
So there are a couple ways that employers can keep employees employed while also saving money, particularly during these tough times. Um, One way that has been common, which we did talk about, was the furlough. Another way that what people have been doing is reducing hours. So you can reduce hours of your staff, regardless of whether they're salaried or paid by the hour, and that could be a good way to save money while trying to keep people employed. Another option that you might have is reducing compensation. Um, and so you can look at your books and figure out what makes the most sense in terms of reducing compensation for the short term. That's another way that you can save money. And when we say compensation, that includes everything. That includes whatever they're making in terms of salary or wages, but also including benefits. So whether it's vacation leave or PTO, not trying to reduce how much you put in retirement, if you have a retirement plan for employees, bonuses that might be due, all of that can be on the table, particularly when you're trying to keep your company afloat and keep people employed. So those are two of the most popular things employers have been doing to keep people employed while saving money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like there's a good opportunity for creativity in that, and also I've heard of companies and employees kind of banding together and saying, yes, let's all take a cut so that we can continue to actually have our jobs during this time.
Yeah.
So you gave us some great opportunities and ideas in just a minute ago. So just another question: can I eliminate the use of leave by employees as a cost-saving measure?
The short answer is maybe. So generally, yes, you can do that. So even if an employee has leave accrued that they have in the bank, you can have like blackout dates for when leave can be used. You can deny the use of leave, take vacation leave, or say, what, to save money, I'm going to, at least even temporarily, eliminate the use of sick leave. Now, the thing is, sick leave is that's where things get a little complicated because at least until the end of this year, the federal government has made it mandatory that employers with 500 or less employees have to provide emergency sick leave or extended FMLA to employees that have been affected by COVID-19. And you can go to the Department of Labor website to see all the specific reasons that an employee can request a type of leave protection. But it mainly covers if the employee contracted COVID-19, if a loved one contracted COVID-19. Those are the two more popular reasons why someone might take this leave. And also, it has to be paid leave. So you have to be very careful about the use of sick leave because if an employee makes it very clear that it's COVID-19 related, then you might be obligated to make sure that that leave is provided.
Got it. Okay. So, like you said, it depends. Okay, so this is something that I, as a coach, get asked questions on, and their companies, small businesses, even large businesses, are coming to myself and other coaches in this situation about offering support structures to employees. So this is something that can be offered at low cost, could be affordable to the company, depending upon the coaching package, to be just a support structure for employees. I've heard of coaches that had just landed new contracts with restaurant companies and were getting ready to launch a big coaching effort and growth spurt for companies, and then unfortunately had to switch gears and be an integral part of the layoff process. And while that sounds dark, it's actually very beneficial for someone in this industry to support companies in a reduction in force or layoff situation under any circumstances, to have that support, to have an independent third party be available for going through this process humanely, with a lot of care, with a lot of powerful listening for the employees themselves, whether or not they will be returning to work at that company. So the goodwill is invaluable. They will always remember that so-and-so company was with me during this time, even if it's COVID or it's just a reduction in force for some financial situations that had to occur in the company, to have them supported. And right now, with the new reopening, there is some opportunity for recoaching, for people to go ahead and get new positions at other companies, other lines of work, or even start their own companies, while other people would be furloughed or waiting for the original company to return. So that's something that I've been getting called to do. As an employer, like, what policies can I implement to ensure employees that I'm committed to maintaining the safe work environment?
Yeah, and this is a question I'm getting a lot of. This is something I'm getting a lot of questions on these days. And one big way that you can implement policies is to create what we call a communicable disease prevention program. And essentially, it's a set of policies that cover things that an office can do to, one, prevent the spread of an infectious disease, or to respond to one being either spread in society or in response to a global health pandemic. And so some of the aspects of the policy include, for example, making it clear that if someone sneezes or coughs, that they should do it properly. So not in your hands, but in your elbow. And if you do it in your hands, use hand sanitizer. Being clear about what constitutes cleanliness in the office. So, for example, with one of my clients, we made it clear that the use of another person's workstation is in large part prohibited unless absolutely necessary. But with that, we have a policy about, at least once a day, employees, wiping down their workstation. So like your mouse, your keyboard, your phone, and your desk, anything you come in contact with. Now there's more flexibility around taking sick leave. And so with one of my clients, what they're trying to institute is, even if it's something small or might be considered small, maybe just stay home instead of coming to work. And this is something that a lot of companies are going to have to learn to do, because it's very ingrained in American culture to not take sick leave. And so, outside of this being like a new policy, it's a new mindset, for many workplaces. It's the idea of just not coming in the first place. And if you do get sick, go home. No reason to tough it out and to put other people, whether it's your colleagues or clients or patients, in harm's way. Other aspects of the policy are setting like particularly if you work in some industries like a medical office or other types of medical practices, policies around cleanliness of utensils or tools used in the scope of work. And so these policies can be as comprehensive as you need them to be, depending on the type of work you do.
Great. So again, it's kind of not everything fits all. Definitely something to continue to look into and adapt as we go along. Again, back in my industry with using professional coaches in this employee-employer environment. So, and a coach can hold a safe space for employees. So especially during this time when people are either out of work or now they're coming back to work, and going into these safe environments, cleanliness safe environments. And there's also going to be a need for safe environments for people to be supported by an independent third party, someone who would be contracted by the company, but not be an arm of the company, where people can actually air, like, do I feel safe at work? And do I feel like, or how do I approach the management about things that I don't feel comfortable about? Or even just like the shifts, if people are going to go to split shifts and working shifts, or people that want to stay home, and then they're, like you said, the mindset around staying home when you're sick. It's so ingrained in our culture to not have that. That would be an ideal situation for someone to have a coach as a preferred vendor, or have them go ahead and set up with an on-call and buy a package of hours for the employees, or even set up weekly meetings around it, or weekly open office hours. It's something that I'm seeing in my industry and that I do offer to employers as we're emerging into this new space. So back to you, Edgar. If I'm an employer, can I require medical questions for my employees?
So the short answer is yes, with some caveats. So right now, the CDC has issued guidelines that try to help employers make sense as to how they can handle soliciting information from employees regarding health information. So a lot of employers right now are taking the temperature of employees at the work site and making it mandatory, which is permissible by federal law at the moment. Also, it's okay to ask people if they've been in contact with anyone who may have had COVID-19. You can even ask people if where they've been traveling, to kind of figure out, if the exposure level is high. And so those are questions you can ask. I still think it's important, though, for employers to have clear policy about how they do this, particularly to make sure it's done for everyone and not just for certain types of employees, because that can run into, again, the discrimination issue. If you only do it for employees you think would be most at risk of being in contact with COVID-19 as opposed to others. So really important to do it across the board. And if you want an extra layer of protection or to put people at ease, it might be okay to ask people to consent to having to answer these questions, just to put people at ease that they have some agency in this. It's difficult for everyone right now. Employers want to make sure that they can ensure a safe work environment and not be on the hook for any liability issues. And employees, are naturally frightened about being outside their home for starters, but also being, the opposite, being accused of maybe carrying, a deadly disease. So I think with this, it's really important for employers to take leadership in making this as painless as possible for everyone, while also having an eye for ensuring the utmost safest work environment.
So this is another question that I would have as an employer contacting you. So how do I maintain the company culture while most of my staff is teleworking?
Yeah, this is an excellent question, and one that I think everyone has been trying to figure out since we've had to largely be working from home. I think as a baseline, it's always good to go back to or maintain the things that worked in the past, when we're all working largely in the same workplaces. So if you used to have staff meetings weekly or monthly or quarterly, still have those staff meetings. That's some way of creating some normalcy in a situation that's not really normal right now. Also, I think it's good for managers or supervisors or to have someone come in as a third party to do check-ins with employees to make sure they're doing okay, and also that their needs are met as a staff person. And that can go a long way because particularly if you don't have a family and you're living by yourself, you don't really have much interaction with people, and so it's never a bad idea to do regular check-ins to make sure that everyone's doing okay as individuals, but also that their needs are met in terms of their ability to be productive, their ability to feel connected with their colleagues, and more importantly, that they feel valued for the work they're doing, particularly during a tough time. And third, don't be afraid to solicit feedback from your staff about ways you can be better at maintaining company culture. If there's anyone that would have a lot to say about that, it's the people that work for you. So don't be afraid to solicit that feedback because it can go a long way into ensuring that people feel part of the solution, which is always a good thing. That they have a voice and being heard, but also you're improving the way that you're maintaining culture, which is really the ultimate goal.
So I'll talk a little bit more about culture. That's something that, again, as coaches, we're brought in a lot of times to look at the culture, the way that they're, say, integrating new employees, how to make them feel valuable, how to effectively keep a culture if it's stuff that they want to save and perpetuate with the mission and the value of the organization. So culture is so much more than just putting in some foosball tables or having a casual Friday day, especially now. And just like what Edgar was talking about just a minute, what you were talking about, Edgar, just keeping in touch and keeping that feedback going as we're going from an on-site to a remote, and then now to a partial remote and partial on-site. So keeping a temperature reading on employees and valuing their feedback is paramount. And again, this is something that a third-party consultant, a coach, could come in and do independent assessments, independent verifications, and actually just kind of keep a pulse on that for the organization. Be something that, again, Edgar, you as a consultant or myself as a coach, or we can work in tandem on something like that. So I want to thank everybody that has submitted questions for our HR and Leadership Coffee Talk. And Edgar and I are happy to put this on a continuing conversation as the COVID situation changes. And of course, as we go back and we talk about HR and leadership topics that are always relevant. And because you are in our community here, we are both available for further consultation. Easiest thing to do would be just book some time. My HubSpot is on there. Edgar's Calendly is on there. And you are welcome to email me, dea@thesuccesspartner.com, with any other frequently asked questions for our next coffee talk. Thank you, and we will see you again soon.
Take care, everybody.